think everyone's still talking about latest trends, latest hacks, latest strategies. Man, build the foundations, understand the foundations of your store. Stop looking at what the new TikTok trend is and how do I get all on that? How do I diversify? I think a lot of people are trying to diversify without the tools in order to diversify, and diversifying is actually going to hurt them. Um, just if you're complaining that Facebook broke your business, look inwards and figure out what you could do to be resistant to those type of things.
All right, folks, we have a hitter for you today from the Great White North. We have Jason Portnoy, perfectly mentored, agency owner, crusher across all the channels. Jason, welcome. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show, my friend.
Hey, super excited to be here. Love everything you guys are doing. Love what you're doing personally. So
Oh,
just
thank you.
super excited to be here.
You see the pro setup? I think you have the nicest setup we've had so far. That is primo. What are those action figures? Those are
So this is
cool, man.
podcast setup, but these are all my childhood action figures. So my mother never threw them out. So the Ninja Turtles, superheroes, Slimer, and then original Game Boy,
Oh,
original iPod,
wow.
Game Gear, a candle from Damon John, some hockey stuff, some press, and then memorabilia is up there.
Oh, wow. So for
And then
folks
some
just listening,
amazing painting from my little kids. So
look at
getting
it, the
through all that.
most important
Yeah,
memorabilia
yeah,
there. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
exactly.
So as
Every
always,
time I leave my office, I come back and there's a new piece of artwork they decide to put up here. So
yeah, it's amazing. That's fantastic, man. It's fantastic. It has a little bit of the abstract art. They have the culture. It's beautiful.
we're gonna NFT it
Um,
one day, but yeah,
I actually have a question about that. So I'm in Austin as always, in the marketing HQ. Where does this podcast find you, Jason?
Montreal.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Now you went to school at Concordia. What did you study?
Something very relevant to what I do now, political science. So completely useless
You
degree. Um, I always joked that after I got it, I would hang it in my bathroom because it didn't do much. But I thought I was going to go to law school, so that was the steps that I was going to take, but didn't
Well,
work
that
out.
kind of made sense, though, right?
Yeah,
It's interesting. We've had a lot of poli sci majors, which there's some parallel to marketing and poli sci, but that's
we all got
fascinating.
lost after
When
figuring out
did you?
what to do after we graduated, so we all ended up in marketing. That's probably how it all went.
That's amazing. So yeah, build off of that. How did you cut your teeth into marketing? How did you get into it?
Um, I always loved business and marketing. Like, so those were all the electives I took in school. Those were the only classes I actually showed up to. Those were the only textbooks that I actually read. Uh, just was always fascinated with how to grow a brand, and then I really put it into practice once I had my first company. So I had a clothing brand, and then realized the power of marketing that way, and that was just something that just came natural to me.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you had a clothing brand. My assistant usually does a pretty deep dive on. She's gonna get the whip cracked on her. What's going on here? Tell me a little about. That's a hard one, man. That's a really hard. You got inventory risk. You got sizing, which makes my head explode. Like,
Oh, so
why'd you
we,
pick that angle? That's a
I mean,
really difficult one.
we take on clients in the fashion space right now, and they tell me about their problems, and they're like, "I don't think you understand." I'm like, "No, no, I understand," and I'm like biting my tongue right now because like it's PTSD. I don't even want to talk about this. I just have flashbacks. Yeah, it's a tough game. In around 2009, I had the idea to start a clothing company, a t-shirt company. I
Okay.
half-assed it for like 3 years while working part-time at another job. Half-assed it, never really took off. And then at some point, I was like, all right, you know what? I got to give it a shot. I don't like working for other people. I know every entrepreneur says they're unemployable, but I'm employable. I just don't like authority. And so I decided I was going to go into full-time. 2012, I launched. I had a Joomla store in 2009. That was what my
That's a
e-commerce store was
throwback.
based off of. What a giant mess and a headache. And then in around 2011, Harley, who's a fellow Canadian, um, you know,
Yep.
came through with Shopify. I'm one of, he was, when we were chatting, I'm like, in 2011, if I open up a Shopify store, what does that make me? He goes, an OG. I'm like, perfect. I'll take it. I want that on my record. So I opened up a Shopify store in 2011, but I mean, there wasn't really much to do around online marketing. I mean, there was stuff to do online, but Facebook ads, wasn't really a big thing. Everyone was
Yeah.
talking SEO at the time. That was like the big driver. I read Crush It. Gary was talking about Twitter. Like that was how to grow a brand. Uh, and I mean, I fell in love with influencer marketing. So I've just said if
Yeah.
cool people could wear my stuff, and there wasn't even a thing called influencer marketing. It just sounded like normal. If cool and famous people wear your stuff, you should be able to grow a brand. And I focused a lot more on the wholesale side, the retail side. So we were in over 250 stores across North America. And then
Whoa.
I'll bring it full circle into the marketing play, into how I got started in marketing. But I became friends with the head of Team Gary V, who's now V Friends president Andy Kranak, and he was like, "Hey
There
man,"
you go.
he's like, "Hey man, Gary's getting really deep on these Facebook ads things. You should try it for your clothing brand." I'm like, "All right, cool, sounds good. Uh, can you teach me?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. We'll hop on a call." And then he introduced me to John Loomer. I got put in the John Loomer group.
Yep.
Um, and then just learned how to run Facebook ads and lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Just had no clue what I was doing, just threw money at it. But then you start to like, old school days where you could scrape audiences started to come up, and you could start scraping audiences, and you could literally put out a post. I put out a post with a picture of a shirt that said share and like for a chance to win, and you would get like 4,000 shares, like 10,000 likes. You'd make $10,000 in sales. It was like that easy. So that was Facebook ads back then. And then you'd boost it to your audience that you uploaded from a scrape list, and you'd make even more money. It was great, and I kind of fell in love with the online marketing world, and that's kind of I at the same time hated every moment in the clothing world, and people saw what I was doing and they asked me for advice, and I'd meet with people and have a lot of free lunches and a free coffee, and really spent more time helping other people and talking to them for free than I did growing my clothing brand. I'm like, all right, I got to figure something out, and that's when I launched the agency.
How cool. When did you kind of realize like you needed to take the clothing brand behind the shed and kind of do what you needed to do to focus on your agency?
Um, it was a hard decision because the clothing brand was growing. It wasn't like we were having down years, and it,
Oh,
it wasn't like it
okay.
was
Yeah,
it
that is a
wasn't,
hard
wasn't
one.
like it was down year after down year. There was growth every single year. I just saw where retail was going. We were predominantly getting big on retail. Um, People ask me if I knew what I know now, would I've stayed in it, knowing where online went? And the answer is still no, because my heart wasn't in it. And retail, they were
Yeah.
nickel and diming you. Like everything was a disaster. Buyers would sell out of your stuff but not bring you back in because you were 50 cents more than the next guy. And it was literally down to the point where you were making nothing off of it. And I was just aggravated. And it was my wife, really, to her credit, that sit there and said, "Hey, I asked you a question about the clothing business, and you turn like silent. Someone asks you a marketing question and for help, and you just start chewing the air off for like and chatting with them for 6 hours. So figure something out." And I wrote like that was like my most, people talk about being authentic and putting out a post online and being vulnerable. That was my first vulnerable post I put out, and I put it out. I didn't tell my friends and family I was doing it, that I was leaving and I was stopping it. I just my wife knew, and I wrote a whole post about, you gotta follow your happiness, and happiness matters more than anything else in the world. And for that reason, why I'm stepping away. But I got a great next venture, and that's helping other people build their brands.
I love that, man. Yeah. It's and it's even harder too when it's kind of your baby, your kind of brainchild to kind of, and to your point too, when it's succeeding, it's even more hard. But sometimes the biggest decisions in your life are what you say no to, not what you say yes to, and that's a really that's a cool
Yeah.
story, man.
And you raise a great point. I think I'm wired a little bit different. I don't think any of my businesses are my baby, right? I've never
Oh, I
had an
love
emotional
that.
attachment.
Very good.
Everything people would ask me, is true rivalry. Is that you see the for like the growth there? That's going to be the business. I'm like, probably not, but it's probably gonna be a stepping stone to what's next. People ask me, the agency, is that it? Like you're done? Like this is business? I'm like, it's gonna be a stepping stone to something else. Like I'm always open to where the possibilities take me. Um, and I'm not afraid. So like there are people who stay in their businesses for way too long because of fear of like, one, it's succeeding. How do I walk away from this? or two, what are friends and family going to think? And I think I stayed in my business a little bit longer for the second reason of what are friends and family
Yeah.
going to say. And I was so worried about what other people's opinion, what are they going to say? Oh, it must have failed. Oh, it must have had a down year. Oh, he must have lost all of his money. And I heard that no matter what after, but at least I was prepared to hear it this time around.
Man, I love that. And the more, it sounds terrible, but the more unemotional you are about things, the clearer you can kind of mitigate some of those biases and make, quite frankly, better long term decisions where emotions can convolute a lot of things. They can be helpful in certain areas ish. To be kind of driving points, but at the same time, man, when you're emotional about decisions, it gets into a really wacky place. To your point, you start bringing in, you're paying for things. Use like, or the old saying is, "I can't pay my bills with your opinions," and so
Mhm.
it's like,
Exactly.
ultimately, you have to do what's best for you and your family, and if that's not it, and it's not driving you towards those long-term goals. I love that. That's
Yeah,
really,
and
really
and
crushing it.
there's a great book called Winning Through Intimidation, and in the beginning they talk about this thing called the theory of next. Why do most salespeople fail is because they every deal is more important, is like too important, but no one deal could be more important than the other deal. You have to be able to roll with the punches, and where something bad happens, you say next and move on. And the faster you could get over that and believe in the theory of next, the faster your ability to succeed will be.
Ooh, I love that. That's big brain moves. Yeah, when I was running my agency, so I had a couple stints at an agency or starting my agency, and the biggest inflection point to success was kind of this theory of next of when I had the privilege and ability to say no,
Hmm.
especially because I was running a small shop, and so you can have one bad client can scuttle the whole shop, and so I like that the theory of next. What was that book?
It's called Winning Through Intimidation.
Winning through intimidation. What a title! That's a good title. Um,
Must read
what's the
for must
best
read
and
for
worst
every
piece of
entrepreneur,
advice?
by the way.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
What's the best and worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Um, I mean, there's so much bad advice out there. I can make a laundry list of the bad advice. The best advice, I don't know if it's necessarily the best advice, but when I started my clothing brand, I sat with Damon John, and
Hmm.
he told me, like, I was like, I'm gonna build $1 billion business. And he didn't even laugh, he didn't smile, he didn't flinch. I'm like, maybe I'm naive, but like call it what it is, but I'm gonna build $1 billion business. Obviously, I fell way short of $1 billion with the clothing brand, but um, I said I was gonna build $1 billion business, and he said, don't call yourself naive. Don't make that mistake. Hang on to that feeling as much as you can, because every entrepreneur starts off with that dream and that naive feeling. And then what happens? They get hit with a no, and they get beat up and punched in the face and punched in the face, and then rejection after rejection. And they lose that feeling, and they become like, just they give up, and don't have that, like, as much as you can. That's I would say that's probably one of the best advice I've ever gotten, because I still don't know how to bottle up that feeling. But whenever I get excited about a new project, that's the naive feeling that comes in. You probably seen that feeling with the startup with Triple Whale right now, and seeing like
Yeah.
the love and the passion, and the runway that you guys are on. That's great. But in life, everything happens, rejection. How can you hold on to that feeling and keep going, keep going, keep going, and never lose sight of that? And I think that's one of the major reasons 9 out of 10 businesses fail, is because it got too hard and they lost that feeling. Um, and on the flip side, maybe the worst advice is, I mean, so much bad. I think a shitty piece of advice is follow your passion.
Yo, I
I
was
think
just
it's
gonna say
important.
that.
I think passion's important. But passion isn't doesn't put food on the table. You got to mix passion with the ability to generate revenue and profit, and you got to love what you're doing along the way. Um, but if you're starting a business, there's going to be a lot of the business that you don't love. So if you're just looking for the passion part, you're gonna have a hard time.
Man, that's one of the best answers I've ever heard for that question. I think it's just so spot on. And there is just a certain aspect of like if you looked at the businesses like just percentage wise that succeed, like no smart or even semi-smart person would ever start a business because the odds are so against you, and so you do have to go into it with this, a bit of delirium, a bit of, there is the famous Steve Jobs had this like reality distortion field where it's just like you have to bend reality, and then there's a certain aspect of you're almost faking it till you make it, and then if you can get to that bridge and cross that chasm, then you do make it, and it seems like it was always destined. So it's this kind of weird dichotomy of like, oh, this could never happen, to like, oh man, it did happen. But I love that, and I'm with you on the passion piece too. I'm not a huge I think the way you put it's perfect, where it's really important, but there's certain driving factors where if you only rely on passion, it's going to be really challenging to get you through those hard times where reality is going to be, it's going to hit you in the face
Passion
multiple
fades.
times, and you have to be
It fades, right? Like passion
beautiful.
goes away at some point, and you got to be able to still go through it.
Oh, I love that. That brings me to kind of that's such a good way to put it. Where so there's a great guy named BJ Fogg, and he does a lot of stuff about behavior change. And behavior happens when a trigger. What is it? BMAP. So motivation, and action, and a prompt, or motivation, ability, and a prompt all exist simultaneously. So a really easy example is you have a phone call, and somebody calls your phone. So that's the prompt. You hear the phone ring. You see the actual person. It's Jason. Oh, I want to talk to Jason. And then you have the phone, so you can actually answer the phone. So the behavior loop completes. But say I get that call again, but I'm in the shower, but I know my wife's calling me, and I want to answer the phone for my wife. I hear the phone ringing. I have the motivation, but I don't have the ability. And then the third variation is it's a telemarketer calling me. I have my phone. I hear the prompt, but it's a telemarketer, so I don't have the motivation. The two line didn't read there is, out of those three levers that you can pull on, motivation is the most fickle, and it's so contextual. Where I'll go to Tony Robbins, or you go to some sort of conference and you're all pumped up. Yeah, I'm going to change the world. And the second you leave that environment or that context, you're back to slanging burgers again. And not like judging fast food people. You make your money how you need to make your money, but you get the point, right? It's so fickle.
Yeah, I love that. It's something Gary talked about, and I think when I got the chance to interview him, I got to ask him this, but I think it's really, everyone loves the feeling of motivation, right? There's a reason why self-help books, people go to Tony Robbins, people like, and I'm not saying anything wrong. I've been to Tony Robbins events, love the guy, I think he's amazing. But there's a reason why they go to the events and then come home and do nothing. It's the same reason they attend conferences and come home and do nothing. It's because everyone likes the idea of being motivated, but no one actually likes to work, and no one actually likes to execute. And I think that's the hard part. You could go in and listen to a million great ideas, and that's why everyone comes home with notes filled with like they have their notebooks filled from a conference, and then a year later, I guarantee you, they probably never did anything with it, because listening to something is a great idea and be like, yeah, that's a great way to grow my business. Oh shit, I actually got to execute and go do it. Is a completely different thing.
Oh, I so spot on, man. So spot on. I had a track coach that would ask us, like, he wouldn't say, do you want to be a champion? He would say, do you want to do the work that it takes to become a champion? Because there's
good coach.
You're so spot on. Yeah, he was great, man. He was Coach Davison, shout out. No, he was incredible. So you have a very high level of kind of marketing acumen, business acumen, really well placed in the space. Did you use any like resources? It sounds like you got to rub up against some pretty big brains, but was there anything that you could kind of give to people, our listeners, into how to gain some of that mastery that you have?
I've invested a lot of money in my own skill and development. Yeah. That's the honest truth. I'm pretty vocal about that. I think there are a lot of people who are afraid to invest money in a lot of things. I think the number one investment you could possibly make is in yourself, because that's the highest ROI. Too many people just throw it in a bunch of different courses and call it a day. But I have a coach. I have a business coach. I've done almost every single program, and through the podcast, I've seen almost every course out there. But I just continue. I love to learn, and I love to read, and I love staying up to date on things and figuring out different ways and learning. And a lot of times is what I hear is, when someone's saying, oh, everyone's going left, then I try to see what happens if I go right, which was really wrongly put with my hand gestures when I'm looking into the camera. Makes it look like I don't know which way is left or right, but yeah, cool. I do know which way is left and right. Um, but yeah, I really, it's a lot of money spent, and a lot of execution, and making a ton of mistakes, and in a time where everyone's really interested in talking about all their wins and everything that's going on. uh Man, I have way more losses than I do wins, and I've made way more mistakes, and I could have a lot more money if I didn't spend it all on my own improvement. But there's a reason why every year that I spend more money on myself and my development and my skill, our business has a better year. And and I'm not blind to that. I clearly see there's a reason for that. Um, I need to improve my weaknesses, and learn where I could be better, and where I could get stronger. So I mean, that's the answer to your question. How can people get that? They should just learn, invest in themselves, and learn, and do what they can. And I think experience is a very expensive teacher. A lot of people say you got to
Yes.
learn through experience.
So
If
well
I could
put.
hire someone who's done what I want to do, and they could show me the way, I'm super happy to pay for that. I buy time every single day. That's the only thing I want. I'll pay for time. Someone will tell me go do this. If I could find someone who's done it before, and I could pay them, $1,000 or a few $1,000 to show me the way, I'll do it.
That's
And then
beautifully
also, to
put,
get to
man. I think.
where you were trying to go with it, is I've also had the luxury of picking the brains of some of the smartest people on the planet. And my podcast was really, uh, in a selfish way, not really designed for the listener. But if I'm going to get,
Yeah.
somebody that I've been trying to, like, get into their office and pick their brain for an hour, uh, I'm going to use that podcast to pick my brain. But I'll frame it in the way of the listeners, because chances are, if I had that question, other people have that question.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, same here. That's one of the reasons I love doing a little podcast as well, where you get it's like a non creepy way to break the ice with really really smart people
Well,
such
look,
as yourself.
go
Perfectly
ask
mentored, by the way. Incredible podcast.
go ask Gary Vaynerchuk for a half an hour of his time, to pick his brain. He'll say no. Go ask him for an hour to interview him. You have a way better chance. So,
Totally agree. Yeah, I love that. Man, we flew through the main segment. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this. This has been probably my favorite main segment so far. That was
I didn't know we
just
were drinking on this
knowledge
podcast.
bomb after knowledge bomb.
Next time I'm coming with a drink.
Coffee.
I didn't know we got the drink on this. So we could have a way more
Coffee,
interesting
folks.
conversation
Coffee.
if we started mixing alcohol into this. So
The drunk pod. Me and you a partner on that.
I
We'll
love it.
do
I
an
love it.
alcohol pod.
Just random gibberish to a bunch of different people, and watch the confused look on their face. Yeah, it's great.
It'll start off kind of on the tracks, and then by the time we get to the sign off, it'll
Yeah,
just be
yeah,
completely off the rails.
love it.
Oh, I love it. Okay, cool. Let's get into the value add segment. This is why the
Sure.
people bought the ticket. So, can you go into a little bit of why you started your agency? How did you structure your agency? You have a really cool thing about pricing where you should never lower your price. Can you kind of talk some people through that?
Yeah, I think you could be the cheapest or the most expensive. There's no benefit of being the cheapest, so why not be one of the highest tiered pricing? I think at the same time, you have to have results in order to back up that price. So if you're just starting off, doesn't mean you should go charge $100,000 for a client. Uh, but I do believe that lowering your price is, just leads towards a lot of bad things. Because one is, most people lower the price to compete, and if you do that, it's a never-ending game. You'll lower your price, I'll lower mine, then you'll have to lower, then I'll have to lower, which leads to just a bunch of really bad clients who you should not be working with in the first place coming in, which makes it almost impossible to scale and grow. So for those reasons, you shouldn't lower your price. I started the agency because, like I said, I was just doing a lot of free consulting for people on how to grow their brands. Fell in love with it. Started. I was lucky, I guess I'll call it lucky, because I don't know where it would have went if I didn't. But my first client that I took on, we went from $2,500 a month in sales to 300,000 in under 10 months, all profitably. Um, and
Whoa.
and if I didn't get that result, and that client would have been a giant fail, I don't know if I would have had an agency. I don't know if that what would have happened. So, it turned out good, and then and then I leveraged that into the next client where we went from 90,000 to 280,000, and then it just became a matter of loving to scale brands and growing them. And then you just leverage that, and it's been great. It's been word of mouth. I'm not looking to build a giant big agency. My goal in the beginning was to create like a VaynerMedia, 800 people, and then I got to spend time
Yeah.
in VaynerMedia, and I got time to talk chat with Gary, and he's like, by no means should you ever do that. That sounds like it's a disaster. And he explained to me what the CEO of an 800 person agency does, and I'm like, man, that's awful. And he goes, yeah. Um, so that's kind of how the agency was grown. And then I launched a coaching program for the people who couldn't afford the agency because I love helping people, and that's kind of where my passion is right now, mostly on the coaching side. But yeah, the agency was just born because of I'm like, cool, if I'm giving all this free advice, why don't I charge charging for it? And then you start realizing if you have results and you have
Oh,
success, you could charge whatever you want as long as the value is always there. And price is never the reason; it's always the value exchange. That's the problem.
yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I always tell people that as well, where very rarely, if probably never, is it pricing. Like, there's definitely some times where like people just don't have the resources to afford you. That's a different conversation than the actual price. When people say no, that's too expensive, it's just because, or for me, anyways, another way that what they're telling you is I can't see how I'm going to get the value for my money, so I'm just going to tell you this throwaway price because it's this catch-all excuse that people always will stop pestering you. Oh, it's
Well,
too
it's like it,
expensive. Where it's like, is it really? Or
you use triple whale, right?
oh,
If
go ahead.
someone sits there and says, "Why am I paying $400 for this?" Right? It's not that $400 is too expensive. Like if their language is very specific, why would I pay $400 plus for this? Well, clearly there's a value loss somewhere. You're not seeing the value to part with your money because you part with your money for a lot of dumber shit than something that could actually grow your business. But I think that's one of the biggest problems, right? Businesses don't see things as investments. They choose to cheap out on tools. They choose to cheap out on advice. They choose to cheap out on hiring the right talent, um, and then they spend money on all the dumb stuff that doesn't make sense. But that's not how you grow a business, and you have to look at it as an investment. So yeah, maybe they can't afford you, but that's their problem, not yours, right? They're like that's so
Man.
many agencies try to bow down to that and try to cater to that. If they can't afford you, I truly believe it's their problem, and not in a bad way. But one is they either have to take that leap and make an investment and trust in someone that can help get them there, because the only other option is they keep doing what they're doing and they're not, and what they're doing right now isn't working. So that's kind of how you have to, in my mind, play it. So I don't think price is ever really a real objection.
I couldn't agree more. And I would actually offer you a third option is that maybe they aren't at the place where they can afford your flagship model. And so what's really smart with you is you can give them kind of a lower tier, not in deliverables, quote unquote, but just, here's some asynchronous stuff that you can then consume. And then as you get to a run rate, that makes more sense to make this bigger investment. So that's why I like how you have that barbell model of your coaching as well as your proper agency.
I love hearing you say that, but the funny thing about the coaching program, yes, it's a lower tier like price model, but like in terms of time, in terms of like what you get, I think it's just I think it's priced like I think value wise should be more than the agency. But it's funny how like hearing you say that, I always I've never really looked at it as like, yes, it's a kind of a downsell, but at the same time it's like really an upsell at the same time. But yes, I totally agree. Everyone should always have some sort of way to hold on to lost leads. So whether that's a downsell or whether that's, hey, Mark, you have an agency where you work with startups, right? Cool. I get a lot of leads that may not be the right fit. How can we do something together? And maybe I send you the leads. But I think every business, whether it's e-commerce, service, or an agency, which is part of service, but if you're listening, should find a way to monetize the leads that don't convert. And there's always a way. You should never just let people come in through your pipeline, have a 45-minute conversation with them, and then send them on their way. There should always be a way to monetize them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What are the best parts and hardest parts of running your agency?
Um, a best part, I mean, I'm not going to bullshit you and say watching all of our clients get amazing success and results and build their dreams. Um, best part of, I mean, it's rewarding, don't get me wrong, but best part of
Yeah.
running an agency is same best part of like being a business than like any other thing. It's I get my time. I get to pick and choose my time. I get to choose my priorities. I don't have to ask for permission. I don't have to do anything. Um, the worst part is the worst part is it's not that it's the worst part, but there's a lot of emotion that goes in dealing with people. And I dealt with it on the buyer side when I had a clothing brand. But in client services, people are a lot more emotional, um, and 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 very different types. And what motivates someone to take action and hire you or stay with you is very different than what motivates the next person. So it's playing all that human elements, and then managing a team on top of it is a lot harder than most people think.
Yeah, I was. So I came from running my own small agency to Triple Whale, and running a team is definitely not only harder, but it's just a different skill set than kind of an individual contributor. Where, to your point, you're dealing with personalities, you're ensuring people have the right resources. There's just different value vectors when you're managing a team versus when you're kind of this individual contributor. So I think
Which
that's so
which is
spot
why
on.
I see all these amazing media buyers, and their next step in their mind is start an agency. Why would I work for someone else and do all this? The truth is, I'll pay you a lot of money if you're a really good media buyer to come work for me. You'll make money. Would you make the same as if you own the client? Absolutely not. But you're not the one dealing with overhead. You're not the one dealing with a bunch of different stuff. The stress of a business. You run the business. You eat, sleep, and breathe it. You're a media buyer. You clock in and clock out when you work for someone. Great talent don't, but for the most part. So it kind of hurts when I see people do that they feel like that's the next actual step when a lot of people I think would be better off emotionally, financially, mentally, physically if they went to go work for someone else than if they started their own thing.
There's a great book called The E Myth that basically the too long didn't read is if you're a great baker, that doesn't necessarily mean you should start a bakery because there's just, to
Great.
your point, there's just so
Yep.
many things that come along with it. And a lot of times you get away from the things that like you actually like doing, where you're actually not like, I'm a CMO now. I haven't touched our paid media in a month. You know what I mean? Like, and that used to be like, I used to love that stuff where
Yep.
I'm deploying paid media, I'm doing the creative, I don't do any of that stuff. My day is all meetings and synthesizing decisions, strategy, politics. Like
It's like
there's just so many different things.
one of the biggest lessons I've learned from a family member who runs a business is I've watched them grow. They built a multi million dollar business, and I've watched one of the biggest mistakes they've always done was take their top salespeople and make them sales managers. And your best salesperson should probably not be your sales manager because you're taking away their time from actually closing deals to going to train people and doing a lot of different things. You don't want your best talent doing that. You want them to be out there in the field hunting, doing what they need to do versus like back in the shed teaching people how to hunt. And so I feel like that's the exact same thing.
It's perfect analogy. It's a perfect analogy. Where do you see the next 2 to 3 years of e-commerce unfolding, especially kind of in like the DTC,
Yeah.
Shopify kind of $1 to $50 million run rate space? How do you see it unfolding?
Um, I think you're going to see a little bit of a purge. I think we've had it easy for the last 5 years. Um, I think there's a lot more that goes into building a brand. I think too many people are relying on a platform to help them build a brand versus actually building a brand. And we saw what happens when you build a brand on a platform. When when the iOS changes came, we're clearly seeing that. Then email happens with iOS 15. That's just a start, right? We're moving into that field. Um, just I think there's a lot. You got to learn how to build a brand. You got to learn basic business and basic fundamentals. You have to understand profit margins. You have to understand finances. There's a lot that goes into building a brand than just, hey, cool, I'm starting off, I'm going to throw money on this platform. um, Cost of advertising is not going to go down, it's going to go up, which is going to force a lot of people out of the game, um, which sucks. But guess what, there are ways to grow a brand without Facebook, without TikTok. It's an accelerant. But it's only an accelerant if you actually have a good product or service. Otherwise, it's an accelerant to your demise, right? You're just the faster you're going to fail. Um, so I think a lot of brands are in for a lot of hard work coming up, and I like it. That's those are the true businesses that get to thrive and go on, and the ones that can look at things from a macro. Even when I was doing all the media buying, I've always thought of myself as a really good media buyer, but there were way more technical people than me uh, that understood
Yep.
like a lot more from a technical side. But I think I was able to generate results because I understood marketing at a high level, at a macro, at a fundamental, the psychology behind it, things like that. That doesn't change, right? David Ogilvy, bring him in. Eugene Schwartz, bring him in and give him these platforms. They'll laugh, right? They'll be like, cool. You mean I could hit 40 million people and I could target them? Like that's crazy. Like they just sent out letters, right? Um, so I think I think it's going to be a move from as the platforms become easier because really that's what it's becoming, right? Take away interest, take away a lot of different
Yeah.
things. It becomes button pushing. So if you could develop great copywriting, if you could understand marketing psychology, man, you're a force to be reckoned with.
No, I mean that's beautiful. That's my views exactly as well. It's I almost think of it kind of like a creative destruction, or when you have like controlled burns where they're just making way for the new, and the people that aren't fundamentally sound to your point, or don't have the economics, or are just to your point trying to grow off of a paid channel. It's gonna be tough going, man. It's gonna be tough going. But the people that do have the fundamentals, do have the economics, do have the community, do have the brand, I think they're still going to be around. I think they're actually going to flourish because there's going to be a consolidation of value within those, and the people that are kind of in that no man's land are just gonna die off because it's gonna be challenging.
And I see it the same thing in the agency space. I think you're going to see a lot of agencies fall off
Yeah,
because they don't have the
so
ability
well
to
put.
educate. And we see it right now with our clients. Most of our time spent in education than it is in. It used to be like 3 years ago. Oh, here's your ROAS. Here was your spend. Cool. We're happy. Everyone's making money. Call it a day. Let meeting adjourned. And now it's education. Now it's like going, okay, well, this isn't what it used to be, but here's what we're getting. Here's where we're moving towards. MER becomes a play, NCPA becomes a play, AMER. All these things become numbers that, first of all, I've been talking about for a long time because that's actually how you measure a brand.
Yep.
But that's now slowly people are starting to understand that. And if you can educate your client past it, so you get hired. I'll use a perfect example. I hire you to run Facebook ads. If you're only going to show me your in-platform stuff and that's it, and not be able to point me in the right direction for even ideas for email, how it could be integrated, and you can't become a strategist to them because you're sitting there saying I'm just a Facebook marketer, you are going to be out of business. I promise. Like you're like brands are not going to be able to do that because all you're going to show them is this and be like, well, we think it's leading towards other stuff because look at your revenue. But if you can't tie it all in, like now we spend more, we spend time across platform and we're hired to just do one component and we spend more time. And they're like, our Google
Yep.
guy doesn't do this. I'm like, well, we should be your Google guys then because we do this too.
Yes.
So just that's a great that's a great segue. But um, if you don't have the deeper understanding of marketing fundamentals and how to grow, and you're not a growth strategist, and every single agency or every single agency owner, or if you're a freelancer, should become a growth strategist, how to profitably grow a business. If you can't become that and you're just one dimensional, look what happened to SEO agencies. And that's the exact same thing that's going to happen to you.
Ooh. Ooh, that's heat, my friend. That's heat. I love that. The SEO agency. That's a great play there. Okay, one last question, and then we'll get into the
Cool.
rapid fire. What's one thing people in the e-commerce community aren't talking about and should be?
Um, Everything we just talked about. Like that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I'm
everything
with you.
everything we just said, they're not talking about it. I think everyone's still talking about latest trends,
Yep,
latest hacks, latest strategies.
yep,
Man, build the foundations. Understand the foundations of your store. Stop looking at what the new TikTok trend is and how do I get all on that? How do I diversify? I think a lot of people are trying to diversify without the tools in order to diversify, and diversifying is actually going to hurt them.
yep,
Um, just
yep,
if you're complaining that Facebook broke your business, look inwards and figure out what you could do to be resistant to those type of things. And I feel bad because there are some businesses that just had to, but like I'm a tough love person, and it comes with a lot.
Yep.
I love business owners and I love entrepreneurs and I love seeing this, but there's a lot of the blind leading the blind out there on social media, and a lot of bad
Yeah.
advice and a lot of
Yeah.
comparisons and a lot of people looking at seemingly bigger people and being like, okay, this is what they're doing, I should do it, without the context of what's actually going on in that person's life, what's going on in that brand, what's going on. They don't have the context. They're just seeing 140 characters and trying to make a decision off of it. Um, and using that as their decision versus like, hey, let me just put my head down and actually build my business.
Man, you are coming with it, baby. I love it. Bringing it for our You're Not Your ROAS listeners. Fantastic. You made it to the rapid fire, Jason. Are you ready for this?
I'm
I
ready.
love you. One of my favorite Canadians, but I got to do it to you. Okay, here we go. Podcasting, overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
Love it.
I,
Running an
I could
agency,
expand,
overrated
do you
underrated?
just want one word answers?
Yeah, yeah. No,
Un,
so I'm a witness in your world.
underrated as a marketing channel. Underrated as a marketing channel. Overrated in the sense that everyone thinks it's so easy to do, but there's a reason why most people don't get past 8 episodes. So I think everyone thinks they should be doing it, but it's fucking hard to do, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and where you're better off using other time. So overrated in that sense, underrated in the sense of a what it could do as a authority and lead gen for you.
Chef's kiss. That's such a perfect answer. Running an agency, overrated or underrated?
Uh, uh, Overrated. Overrated. I think, like I said, people should. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of. I think you're going to see a lot of agencies going through a very, very tough time going on right now. I think it's going to get a lot harder. It was very easy when you could take your screenshots and post it up there and get clients with your 8x return. But now when you're going to actually have to prove that you know marketing and and you understand growth and how to grow a business and you could actually advise them, that's great. I think you're also dealing with a lot of people who are graduating in marketing right now. When I graduated in marketing, it was data entry. Those were the jobs that you would get. When I applied for marketing jobs, it was like, cool. Do you know how to use Excel? I'm like, no, but what does that have to do with marketing? And they'd be like, well, you're going to enter the data. And I'm like, that's not marketing. But and now you're getting people graduating who understand social media, who are understanding a lot of these things, and you're going to have that play of should we bring this growth strategist in house, so that we can understand what's going on and learn how to hold an agency accountable before we do anything else.
Brilliant. Montreal, overrated or underrated?
Overrated. Get me out of here. Get me to warm weather. Get me out of this. I mean, yeah. So socialist systems. I don't might piss people off here, but socialist systems don't work for me. I'm a capitalist. I like I like growing businesses. I like seeing people, um, you know, earn what they get and whatnot. And and yeah, no. If it wasn't for my family, I would not be in Montreal. But an amazing hockey team, the best hockey team in the world. I'm a
There we
diehard.
go.
I'm a diehard fan. There's a lot of love about this city, but as a business owner, man, it stinks.
Yeah, it's challenging. You guys have a very unique tax structure, and we'll leave it at that. We already talked about this, but why not we'll jump into it again? Lowering your price, overrated or underrated?
uh, Worst thing you could possibly do. I mean,
Love
the
it.
only way
Love
the
it.
only way you should lower your price is if it's incentivized. So the only way we lower our price as an agency or give a discount is based off length of contract or cash up front. So if we were going to sign up for
That's a really
if you're going to sign up for 3 months and you don't want to pay, let's say I'm just making this number up, $10,000, which is 30,000, cool. We'll take 25,000, but you pay up front and you sign for the 90 days. Or if they sign for a year, shorter contract, but year-long contract with 90-day out clauses are 3-month contracts. So don't pretend that's a long-term contract. So it's so if you're going to do a long-term contract, part cash up front. Those are the only ways I would lower my price.
That's a really good caveat. I forgot about that. I'm glad you said that. NFTs, overrated, underrated?
Overrated and underrated. Underrated, I think it is the future. Overrated, most of them are going to go to zero, and a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money.
My view. We're like brother from another mother. That's exactly how I feel. Entrepreneurship, overrated or underrated?
Underrated. Um, Underrated, but highly romanticized. Underrated. I think it's one of the greatest things to be. I think the ability to produce revenue out of thin air for people, the ability to create jobs, the ability to to help people, achieve their dreams, is something truly, truly, truly amazing. And live life on your own terms is just, there's something fascinating about that. It's romanticized in the sense that, I mean, everyone looks at it and thinks it's like a rock star. It's also one of the most loneliest journeys anyone could ever take. The lows are very, very low, and I mean, Gary says this all the time. It actually has one of the highest suicide rates out of any industry, and it's for that reason.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
people think it's easy, and they see everyone else. And like I said, comparison's poison, right? You watch people on social media, and you think you could do it. You watch Shark Tank, and you think you could go do it. And then when you hit with no after no after no after no, the rejection really weighs on you. And it's, I mean, I don't sleep well, right? Like I sleep well, but I need to fall asleep with the TV on because my brain doesn't stop. I can't meditate because I
Yeah.
can't sit still. My mind always goes. If I mean, if you want to be a business owner and you want to take on that stress and everything like that, it's an amazing, amazing journey. But make no mistake, it's hard.
Yeah. So well put. Favorite meal and why?
Sushi or pizza, I could live off those two all day, and I think with the shape that you see me in right now, my physical shape right now, I think you could tell that I'm trying my best to do it, to live off those two. Um, but yeah,
I like it. When you come out here, we'll do some nice. There's some nice sushi joints here in town. We'll take you out. We'll put you up when you come speak. Your favorite, or I guess not favorite, because it's like picking favorite child, but your most memorable podcast guest.
uh, Gary. I mean, Gary's the reason I
Gary.
started the
Nice.
podcast. Gary's the reason why every single big name after me, after him, came on the podcast. Um, there's a lot of amazing, amazing things, but I think that episode, aside from just like paving the way and why I started the podcast, was the first podcast where if you listened to episodes before that, they were awful. Man, I was like reading questions off of a paper. I didn't listen to what anyone was answering. I didn't know how to. Gary, I zoned out. Like my videographer who came with me to film it was like, dude, we did a podcast right before that with Brandon Steiner. And he was like, that's good. You got to bring a little bit of more heat with Gary though. And I was like, all right. And I was thinking about, he's like, dude, you like zoned out. And it's true. I do not even remember the conversation until after I had to watch it back, because I was like in some weird trance or zone. Um, but it's a confidence play. You can sit with anyone across the table, no matter how big they are, and now you kind of have the same. You're elevated a little bit. So Gary's the first one that allowed me to really like just be like, oh shit, like I could do this. I could hang with the best in this space.
Shout out Gary V. Amazing. Favorite place travel to and why?
Uh, don't been there once, but I would love to go back to Hawaii. Absolutely loved Hawaii. It was my honeymoon.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
an amazing,
Yeah.
like just
Which island?
we went to Maui. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, amazingly nice people, awesome culture, just beautiful weather. I mean, what's not to love about it? So if you're asking me to play favorite place to travel and vacation, that's the one.
Yeah, definitely. The wallet doesn't like it so much. I did a stint out in Hawaii as well, and it lived up to being beautiful, but damn, it's expensive.
Our wedding money was not the same as it was when after that Hawaii trip. So yeah, we came back and it was like, but yeah.
um, favorite follow on Twitter?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Look at
I
that
wouldn't be
dirty
on this
pool.
podcast. I wouldn't be on this
All right,
podcast if it
last
wasn't
question.
you. How could I like sit on your podcast, chat with you, and say anything otherwise? Even if I'm completely 100% bullshitting, how could I not say that?
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take the shameless plugs. Okay, last question for the rapid fire, and you're almost done. You could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, fictional or non-fictional. You're at a 4-person table. You're sitting at the head. You get to invite 3 people. Who are they?
Oh, that's a good question. It's not really a rapid fire question because I got to think. These are the questions, by the way, I'll answer, and then
That's
I'll
why I
be up,
saved for
then
the
I'll be
last.
upstairs in the shower, and I'll be like, no, 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 it's this person, it's this person. Yeah. Uh, I'd probably pick like a grandparent, like a great grandparent. I would love to hear like what they went through
Okay.
because I think history and stories are super important. I would love to just know which grandparent. I mean, you're asking me to like choose that. I'm not going to publicly pick a grandparent because that's how you get
Okay.
in trouble with the family. So a grandparent, um, and just to hear their
Okay.
story, um, I'd probably. Whew, man, such good ones. How do, I mean, wow. Um, I'd take. Oh, fuck. I mean, you have me
The
stumped.
rapid fire, it's living up to its name.
I'm never stumped on these. And these are like the ones people always have in their back pocket, like George Washington and John F. Kennedy and Jesus. Um, uh, like I don't. I'd probably pick. Uh, I would pick like from a business side, from a marketing side, maybe David Ogilvy, so I could pick his brain about copy, talk about copy, and
Ooh.
talk about a lot of different stuff that way. He's one of my favorites. Um, and then and then I would probably pick like some biblical figure, and I'd probably
Yeah.
who's probably rad to me, like not like Abraham was cool, Moses but like Noah, man, like that's like that's I'd love to just jam with. Like, really, you sat on a boat with all those animals? Just walk me through
Yeah.
that. How do you build that boat? Like, what's going on? I think that's probably like the most underrated story in all of it. Um, or Adam and just be like, why'd you let Eve eat that apple? Like what was going through your mind? But Noah's a fascinating one. I would love to just chat with him because that's work ethic, man. Like, and that's work ethic and
Oh,
faith.
I
I'm
love
gonna
that.
build this giant boat. I'm gonna go find all these animals, and those are animals that would probably eat you alive if you ever tried to like touch them, right? So
Yep.
I would just love to know. So walk me through it. Like, how'd you do it? David Ogilvy would love
Hey,
that
you came out
conversation,
on
by
the
the
other
way.
side. Exactly. You got Ogilvy and then you got the great grandpa. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
See, you ended up getting it.
yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Took me a while to get there,
Jason, you're
but
such a
I got
gem,
there.
dude. Ah, hey, all is well that ends well. You're such a gem. Tell people how to follow you. Tell people about your agency. How can they get more involved? How can they get on your coaching calls? Let the people know this time is yours.
Yeah. All over social media at Jason Portnoy. My website's jportnoy.com, jportnoy.com. And on there, you have all the different ways we could possibly work together and jam out. And yeah, super accessible on every one of those platforms.
And don't forget the podcast. What are you doing
And
here? What are you doing here?
it's on there also, right? So you'll find it there too. But the podcast is
Okay.
called Perfectly Mentored. And yeah, it's a good one. You should tune into it.
It's an absolute must listen, people. Go smash that subscribe button. Jason, thanks so much for stopping in. If you do want to get more involved with Triple Whale, it's trytriplewhale.com. We're on the Bird app at Triple Whale. And then I'd be remiss not to let you know that we have a fantastic newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, Thursday called Whale Mail. You just can subscribe right on our Twitter app profile page. Well, I can get that out. Look, the drinks are getting to me, Jason. I told you to go off the rails a little bit.
We're gonna have to have
It's
this
just
chat
coffee,
about this
folks. It's
podcast.
just coffee.
About that drinking
Oh,
podcast.
dude, I'm
Yeah,
in.
we gotta do
100%
it.
in.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be super fun. It'd
Yeah.
be super fun. Dude, thank you so much. You were just massively impressive, incredible, eloquent, thoughtful responses. You're the man. Go subscribe to your podcast. Go hire his agency. That's 32 in the books, folks. Thanks again, Jason, for stopping by. And then when you come out to Austin, sushi on me. We'll do it big, brother.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right. We'll see everyone on the flip. Thanks again.